Hi guys, so I welcome you all to day 20 of Anthropology lecture series. So on our day 19 we had already started the Paleolithic period, in which we had covered lower Paleolithic, and today we are going to complete middle Paleolithic and upper Paleolithic, and with that we are going to finish our Paleolithic today. Tomorrow we will start with the Mesolithic period, right? So let's get started. So first of all, I have a disclaimer that these pictures are only for like visual purposes. They might not be very correct with the historical perspective, so please do not go on these pictures. These are just to retain your concentration over the topic, and it's not like I've put them blindly. They are somewhere around the same time, but then of course there could be some things which might be wrong in these pictures, so please do not blindly go on the pictures, right? So middle Paleolithic. Now middle Paleolithic, if I have to tell you, this period it started around 80,000 to around 40,000 years. Okay, so now again do not be confused if these dates are a little different here and there in different books, because somewhere it might start from 1 lakh years, somewhere it might start from 80,000 years, somewhere it might start from more than like 1 lakh years. So do not get confused. The basic you try to understand, right? So if I have to give you a timeline of the same, so I will tell you that the lower Paleolithic we had started that it existed around 2.6 million years to 10,000 years. Not the lower Paleolithic, but the whole Paleolithic as such. Okay, so it was around 10,000, right? And if I have to tell you the timings of lower, middle and upper Paleolithic from this, so lower Paleolithic was around 26 to 1 lakh year. Then middle Paleolithic, you can say 1 lakh year to 40,000 years, or 80,000 to 40,000 years, and 40,000 years to 10,000 years was the upper Paleolithic. So if you do not understand it, I will just write it here for you guys to understand. This is lower Paleolithic, which existed from 2.6 million years, that is 26 lakh years, to 1 lakh year approximately. Fine. Then middle Paleolithic, I will say from 1 lakh year to 40,000 year, and then comes your upper Paleolithic, which is from 40,000 years to 10,000 years, right? So this is your timeline, and this whole from 2.6 million years to 10,000 years is the timing of Paleolithic period as such, right? So now let's start. So I had already told you in the last chapter also, so there were periods of glaciation, interglaciation and pluvial interpluvial cycles that were going on in that time, right? So the worm glaciation, that was the last glacial period of Europe, that was roughly the time which was coexisting with the middle Paleolithic. That is, it was basically ice age going on at that time. And if we have to talk about in the geological time scale, it was the Pleistocene epoch, late Pleistocene. And now it might be getting too confused, so that is why I am telling you to go back to the chapters, watch the geological time scale, come back to it. So we had seen in the geological time scale, Pleistocene was the most important, because every in perspective of culture, because there were a lot of changes that were happening, right? So Pleistocene में late Pleistocene, इसके बाद Holocene epoch start हो जाएगा, which is the present era, right? So उससे पहले वाले में late Pleistocene की ये बात है, जब ice age चल रहा था, and it was roughly Neanderthal period, right? That is archaic Homo sapien का time. So we had seen in lower Paleolithic that from Australopithecus to Homo erectus, ठीक है, we had seen existed around lower Paleolithic. So in middle Paleolithic, it was the time of Neanderthal, that is the archaic Homo sapien, right? So अब now if you think कि this is too tough, So now you need to go back to 1.6. That is why I was telling you, you need to watch that chapters, right? Do not get confused. Neanderthal was called archaic Homo sapien. So Neanderthal was roughly coinciding with this period, right? The culture was Mousterian. Mousterier is the place in France. So all of these are French names. So you don't need to get confused. Like if I say Harappan culture, that is because it existed in Harappa, right? Indus Valley, because that existed in Indus Valley. So the place they are found mostly on that only the names are put, right? So Mousterian culture, these are all European names. So you might not resonate with them. That's okay. But you just need to keep that in your mind, okay? All the names that we are going to read today and after this now basically would be European names, because that is the place where most of these cultures were existing also, right? So Mousterian culture, this was present in Europe, in your West Russia, South Asia and North Africa. Now I'll just show you the map, just wait, okay? Let me just first show you the map only, okay? See, this is your Mediterranean. So this part I'll just highlight it with the color. This would be your North Africa. This would be somewhere here will be your west of Russia, because that time Russia was the whole thing, right? Balkanization and all of that had not happened. So all of that was Russia only. This part, and then your this Middle East wala part aa jayega, then your Europe wala part aa jayega. So that is what it is written here: Europe, West Russia, South Asia, North Africa, right? So yeah, and the technology that they were using was more composite tools. Now you need to just understand what do we mean by composite tools. In lower Paleolithic, we had seen that there was a transition from more crude tools that were mostly present in the environment to kind of doing some kind of working on it, workmanship, to make it more like specialized, right? So they were more or less large crude tools only, but some kind of sophistication we had seen. So from transitioning from lower Paleolithic to middle Paleolithic, the tools had become more composite. Composite means that, for example, this is a tool. I'll just try and show you. This is not the exact tool that they were using. I'm just telling you. So this is one part and this is second part, right? So they were using more than one part of the tool. For example, in lower Paleolithic only one like this stone was used, right? But now they have transitioned to using tools that had parts, and these parts itself were made of different things. Like here it would be only stone tool, right? Yeah, only bone tool, right? Yeah, only wood tool. But here they were using tool that were composite in the sense that it had more than one thing, and then this part might be of stone and this part might be of wood, right? So this was the composite tool making, right? So now you need to pay attention that as and when culture, we are going to see progressing times na, culture, economy, polity, everything about humans will evolve, will become complex, and that is what evolution is all about. You are not going to see evolution in one sense, it is going to be in every aspect, okay? Now we are not debating here ki it went on to become a good thing or a bad thing. That's not the question. The question is that it is going to become more and more evolved over the time, right? So from crude tools to more composite tools, abhi tak itna ho gaya, right? So these were composite tools, and they were carefully preparing the core. I told you yesterday also, that means the flakes, now the flakes that were coming out of the tool were not crudely, they were not putting force on the stone just to take out flakes. They were putting controlled force, so that the size of the flake that is going to come out, they know it already, and now they must have started to use these flakes as a tool itself, right? For small little things they were using these flakes as tools also. So now the tools they were using were scrapers, points, spears, and rarely hand axes. So if I have to draw, I'll tell you, see, the old tools were there, right? They are not going to go anywhere, but definitely they had reduced in size. For example, if this tool was like this big in the starting, it has reduced to this size, because small tools will come more handy, right? If you have to throw anything, or if you have to use a small tool which is less heavy, that is going to come more handy, right? That is why the size definitely decreased. Then apart from this, they were using the scrapers, which was something like this. Then they were using the borers, that was something like this. Then they were using the points, that would be something like this kind of a tool. So all these tools they were using, right? All these tools they were using. Okay, and the eco niche, as we have clearly seen that ice age was going on, so definitely the weather has to be cold, and there was a rich variety of plants and animals, right? So this was yeah. So now let's go on to what were the other things. Use of fire, we know. Of course, Homo erectus started to use fire, so they must have mastered the art of using fire, right? So they must be using fire on a very daily basis. They must be using it for cooking, for shelter, for like everything. So they were living in rock shelters, that Homo erectus were also doing in the lower Paleolithic. At least they have started to do it, right? So now evidence shows that they were scraping the animals, probably for using them as blankets or clothing. So now this was an adaptation to the cold, because as the ice age was going on and it was too cold, so they must be using the skin of the animals to cover them up. So again a sense of clothing came. So that means things are getting much more evolved, right? They were migrating, because as in when time will pass, their population will also increase. Okay, so they will move to wider places, newer places, so that there is less competition among themselves, right? And they can live peacefully. So in summers, they used to travel to north, right, to the tundra regions, right? And in the winters come back to the forest for refuge. So this is more or less like today, if you see the pastoralist communities of India, like the Gujars and the Bakarwals, they move like that also. Because so if you want to create a visual memory in your mind, you can just think, because thandi hai, you do not have that much heating capability, तो आप क्या करोगे? You will move to a place that is less cold, right? So in winters they will move back to the more tropical regions, and then in summers they would move upwards. So that is how they used to migrate and live. And social organization was still like a band. Now this band, these tribes, chiefdom, this is a part of political anthropology जो हम आगे पढ़ेंगे in next chapters. But just to let you know, band is more of a egalitarian organization, where okay, where no more than like 10 to 20 people, or roughly you can say 50 people will live. Okay, so these are basically only extended family kind of a group, and not any other people would live. So they are extended families. There is no kind of a political authority. Everything which is done through consensus. Okay, so obviously they are such a small group, they do not need to have a leader, or they do not need to have a political leadership, right? So अभी तक कुछ simple kind of society ही है, band type society है, where people are more egalitarian, everybody is doing things with consensus, they are moving together. So nothing more than a band kind of society. Then ritual burials, हमने देखा था ना, when we were reading about Neanderthals, we had seen कि ritual burials used to take place. There was a skull that was put with the pollens, and then there was a child buried along an adult. Then we had found all kind of strange burial sites in Iraq, that is Shanidar and La Chapelle in France. So you need to now make links with that chapter, right? So then you will be able to understand. So obviously society had become complex because they were doing some kind of a religion had come in, because if they were putting like belongings which were their personal belongings with the burial, that means they were believing in afterlife. They were thinking that something must have been happening to those buried individuals, right? So some kind of religion had evolved. Then there were presence of ornamental objects also, like necklace and beads, and there were like strange groupings of cave bears, like their skulls used to be, you know, like arranged in a certain way, which also made you know, the anthropologist or the excavationist to believe that there was some kind of a magico religious aspect, you know, attached to it. Because why would they, you know, arrange those cave bears skulls in a certain way, right? And they may have had elaborate songs, dance, all of that culture. So you must remember that Neanderthal was a pretty intelligent species, right? They were pretty intelligent, they were doing everything, and Neander was like one of those species which was of course Homo sapiens you know, excluded them in the competition, but they were very intelligent, right? And in European places they were like thickly populated, not like thickly like in millions, but like a fair amount of population, must be around in thousands. So they were there and they had lived there for a long time. So they were intelligent people, so they must have developed some kind of religion, some kind of language, some kind of living style, some kind of, you know, like to keep themselves busy, like song and dance. So all of that, this was all about the middle Paleolithic period. So not much to remember here. Mousterian culture, tools, eco-niche, you should remember the time period, the place, and some features like that, right? So after this this you can see a picture. Now we are going to start with the upper Paleolithic time. So this, as I told you, it existed around 40,000 years to 10,000 years roughly before present, right? And a very very important time period, because at this point Homo sapiens had come on the scene. Okay, so you can see clearly from each and every you know, time we are reading, from lower Paleolithic to middle Paleolithic to upper Paleolithic, how biological evolution has also shaped these cultural evolutions, right? So you need to keep that in mind. So now all this highlighted portion, that North Africa, this Levant region, Israel, Iran, then India, then all of this Southeast Asia, Russia, Europe, parts of Europe, they were all, you know, having this area. So you can see clearly the geography is also growing, right? We had started from just Africa and now we are covering almost all parts of the world, right? So how the geographical expanse is also growing. You can see this kind of giant, you know, this is a mammoth. Mammoth is like you can say it ajka, you know, elephant type, but much more colossal than, you know, an elephant. So these kind of colossal animals were, you know, inhabiting the earth, which eventually, you know, must have got extinct during the evolution and changes that happened. So humans were living with these kind of colossal animals, and you just imagine to be able to survive was so tough, you know. It was not the kind of environment that we have today. They were living in much more harsh conditions than that, right? So now, yeah, upper Paleolithic time period is this. Homo sapiens had come, improved their tool technology and skills. Obviously each time we will see a progression. Obviously tools, techniques, culture, religion, polity, everything will see an improvement. Now organized into larger groups, of course, they will now be, you know, they will start to grow in population also. Exploiting new environments, entered last frontiers of the habitable world, America and Australia. Okay, so now you know that Homo sapiens were one of those creatures who like aggressively moved and migrated to newer places. So now last frontiers, that was America, the new world, and Australia, because Australia is also covered with water on all sides, you know, so it is very tough to get there until and unless you have some boat kind of technology, right? So you need to understand na how they must have, you know, reached that place. So they must have had some technology to reach that area. So you can understand now the species become intelligent, they were reaching the you know last frontiers of the world. Technology had become complex and confusing. That means the tools they were using were more complex and confusing now. We will see the tools, don't worry about that. Mostly they were using the blade technology. So if you had to see blade technology they were using, like for example this is a blade, sorry I have made it so badly, let me just make it again. A blade would be something like this. Then they were using some tools like this also. So these kind of tools they were using, right? So culture saw transition from Mousterian, that is the middle Paleolithic period, to Perigordian, okay, and this was around 35,000 to 18,000 years. Now I'll just give you the understanding of it. So in the lower Paleolithic we were having mostly three broad classifications: the old one culture, the Acheulean culture, and you were having the chopper tool culture, right? So after this we moved on to the middle Paleolithic, where we were having the Lee Moustier culture, yeah, Mousterian culture, right? So we had that, the composite tool one. Then we came to upper Paleolithic. Now here just try to understand, we'll have basically three classifications broadly, but only one is very like popular, or you know like mostly you will see the Aurignacian culture, but just to make a continuity I am telling you all the three. One is the Perigordian, second is the Aurignacian, and third is Magdalenian. Again these are all European names, French names, so do not worry about it. So in Perigordian, that existed around 35,000 to around 18,000, okay, and Aurignacian also started around the same time, like around 13,000 years, and Perigordian was then replaced by Magdalenian until 10,000 K, that is 10,000 years back, when upper Paleolithic era actually ended, okay. So upper Paleolithic we know it existed around you know last was the 10,000 years back, right? That time it ended and then Mesolithic period started. So till 18,000 to 10,000 years it was the Magdalenian period. So we can see this is Perigordian, this is Aurignacian, and this is Magdalenian. This existed around the same time, while this transitioned in the end to the Magdalenian, ठीक है? Now you understand basically इसमें क्या क्या culture है, and these are just names, okay. It is not like कि you are going to have very different things in all of these. These are similar only. Major things will be same, it's just that the area a little bit here and there will differ, nothing else. So as you can see here, Perigordian replaced Magdalenian period, that lasted till 10,000 years, and another culture, that is Aurignacian, that must have come from the Middle East, okay, around 33,000 years, which lasted till 25,000 years. So somewhere Perigordian and Aurignacian were around the same time, they were present around the same times. So if you find anything confusing, please hear it once more, you will get to know it better, okay. So now what are other you know characteristics of this period? The technology was rich in blades, I told you. Then there were borers, points, bow and arrow. So now the technology has sufficiently grew. You can see they are using blades, they are using borers, points and bow and arrow also. So bow and arrow is a very important tool. It's a very important technology, okay, because now you can hunt down from a distance, you can hunt with much more precision, you know, you need much lesser energy to hunt, so all of that. Then Eco-niche, we know it is roughly as Mousterian only. Mousterian, when we say Mousterian, we mean Middle Paleolithic, and Middle Paleolithic we had seen that it was the Ice Age, so roughly the similar kind of environment, right? And they were dwelling on a semi-permanent basis. That means now they, because it was cold, because there was plenty of food, so food ka availability ka issue nahi tha. So now they were staying at one place till the time they could successfully exploit that environment. And because cold tha to itna move karna mushkil hota tha, to and they had developed the idea of shelter and clothing. So now they were not like constantly moving. They were moving, but they were dwelling also on semi permanent basis, like 1 month 2 month एक जगह रुक गए, उसके बाद you know start to move again. And you can see population भी बढ़ रही है. So now there are camps of like 100 people, and they were like adapted to extreme cold. So again this shows ki how the species were evolving and adapting to different environments, newer environments, and that too successfully, right? So population density increasing, right? So basically just imagine this is the time Homo sapien had come. So obviously there will be advanced things only, na, right? Then they were living in larger groups with some kind of political authority. Now this just wait some, yeah, with some kind of political authority. Now this point is very important, because as we have seen in the Middle Paleolithic, still a band kind of I don't know what's happening to this, just wait, just let me remove. Okay, what's happening to this here? I think there's some error. Okay, let me just do it here only on the side. So just imagine that हमने बात किया था in the Middle Paleolithic, it was basically a band kind of band. So band means basically simple, egalitarian, no political authority, no leadership, everything is happening through consensus, small groups, mostly of extended families. But as the people were growing, and mostly of 20 to 30 people like that, right? But as they were growing, you can see significantly now the camps are of 150 people. So now 150 people to move together to have the similar kind of idea, because as many people in a room, as many ideas, right? So 150 people, so they all will be having different kind of mindset. Everybody would differently behave, right? So to control and bring a discipline and have a group like bonding feeling, there must be evolving society also, na, like we had seen in the last ki female male pair bonds bhi aane lag gaye the. That means some kind of a marriage kind of institution had come. So now society was also evolving, so now political leadership was required. So some maybe ab inme se kuch ek इंसान को they must be getting one person to control that whole group, and that could be a person of age who was like more aged in the group, or a person possessing special skills, right? Or any person who was like reputed in the group, right? So anybody it could be. But now you can see just from being a simple society, things are getting complex, right? So some kind of political authority. They were continue to rely on tundra and forest game. Tundra is the regions that is like above the temperate, that is around 60-50 degrees, like that, north south, but north here they are referring to north only. So that place, and forest से उनका मतलब हो गया more like tropical regions like North Africa and all. So that, and now in this time, as the mind was also evolving, so now they were drawing, there were sculptures, statues, and one very famous statue that was found from Europe was the Venus statue. So it could be comparable to one of the, like India mein in the Indus Valley civilization we found mother goddess ka figure, right? So similar to that, you can just imagine one Venus figure was found. She was a lady who was apparently pregnant. So it was a depiction of a lady who was apparently pregnant. So it could be a symbolization of maybe life on earth or anything like that, right? So that kind of sculptures were coming out, and they were painting. So see how things are evolving. And then they were using harpoons and fish hooks to hook, so to fish. That means again improved technology, because they were eating fish in the coastal regions. So they were like having they had started to improve their technology in fishing also, and then they migrated to whole of the world that we have seen already. So these are the basic pointers that you need to know. Like you can see these kind of cave paintings they were doing. So these are some of the pointers that you can know, and apart from that you can just quote something about Homo sapiens, and you can write about the geography that they were present, the tools, and these basic pointers, and the culture, basically the three, right? So this will be enough. And any doubts, please post in the comment section below. Any suggestions, please do tell me, and I would like for all of you to please like, share and subscribe, and thank you.